The astrology is actually linked to the DNA, and now seeing that the stories in the stars are actually woven into your DNA, that changes the game, because it means that the two are absolutely interwoven. It will change your life without, in a way, without even having to practice. You're just taking it in and being with it, and then naturally you'll be prompted spontaneously to start doing something,
because it really does help you to see your life as a creator and not a victim, as a person that's playing this beautiful game.
You find like abundance, you find freedom, you find diamond consciousness.
What I'm starting to also notice is that there's a massive difference between true wisdom and intelligence and just information.
What happens is you get this dopamine hit of, I've now transcended the limitation that I had. So then you look for more limitations. But the thing is, that keeps you caught in the loop.
You are already complete, and you just need to find a way to take the layers off to reveal it.
Now that we're talking about the stories and how it's in the stars, I also understand how we're attracted to certain stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, we were just speaking about it before you got on, that he loves Rocky, and I always love the one that the hero's journey. Like, it's always but I also picked up from, like, just seriously demolishing your videos, that I got stuck in the journey somewhere where I always thought I had to fight. I always had to like keep doing that part. And I thought, oh, that's where I get the badge. Like, I keep doing that part. And then that photo that you've got, Leo, with the lion and the crown, I was like, no, now it's my journey to go to that place. Because I got stuck at the doing it hard and fighting and grinding, and it's that part. And I didn't realize until I saw that photo, something connected. I was like, no, there's that side of Leo too, which is like, he's reached his kingship. He reaches it.
Yeah, no, and that's why I say it kind of feels like you guys have a very strong Capricorn placement in your journey, because if you think about that, the goat it climbs the mountain, and in astrology it's at the winter solstice, right? So the Capricorn starts at the bottom of the wheel, and it climbs up the mountain, up the wheel of astrology. And so, but at a certain point it reaches the peak, and then it's like, well, then what? Because it's really weird for the human condition to be like, well, what happens if you're already at the top? Like, we kind of like freak out, because like, well then, but we know there's a journey to continue, but it's in a different way. You've gone up another octave, and that's what you're sort of explaining. Like, it's like, okay, if I'm at the top of the mountain, then what do I do? And it's actually just then about enjoying yourself, observing what's around you, and sort of kind of being with it rather than in your own will of purpose, so you get to expand into, wow, this is a great view. I can have a picnic here. I can meditate here.
Yeah.
I can just breathe here. And like, why would I want to go on another journey when I get to see this view? Like, so there's that moment of sort of just taking a breath, and and that's in life, certain years or age, we get to just say, take a pause, and yet we're still going on a journey, but it's in a much more subtle way, rather than just full physically, feeling like we're, charging.
Yeah, always thinking like we have to fight, because, he had that same energy. And then we both picked it up in each other, though, that we both constantly wear that our badge. And then we started to notice that, no, we've got to.
Well, we always take, for example, if you gave us two roads, an easy and a hard, I'll jump on the hard road no matter what. But I think it became addictive. It became something where, as a profession, I train mixed martial, like MMA fighters and boxers and kickboxers. So that's what I do. That's where my passion lies anyway, for the last 16, 17 years, even since I met Aisha. And always thought everything has to be the Rocky Balboa story. And if it didn't come without that story, then it was, let's say, not warranted, not earned, not deserving of, etc. And I think we're at a place in our lives now where we're starting to let life do its thing a little bit, starting to trust the journey, the story, and get out of the way of trying to be the controller the whole time.
Yeah, no, it's such a, and so when I was really young, I did karate and stuff. So I kind of get that understanding. But it's
Mm.
interesting, isn't it, that in a way, surrender can be the most powerful thing. It's like softness can be strength.
Yeah.
And that's why I say in the transmission, it's about this pole shift within ourselves that humanity is undergoing at this time, where it's like, well, if we try another hat on or see it from another way, like in the MMA, like when you're in the grappling, like sometimes that surrendering into the moment
Yeah.
gives you the time and space to analyze everything, and kind of the other person's exhausting themselves, you're catching your breath to calculate the next right move, and it becomes more about efficiency and more about like, how do I apply myself into the right things
Mhm.
rather than trying to take on the whole world, take on
Yeah.
the whole task.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's I think that's kind of a quite a normal thing I see, especially in the self-help development scene. I don't really speak about this much, but I see it so much. Is that when people say they go into their healing journey, they want to be destroyed. They want to be like go into the whole thing about the shadow work and everything. It's like, because what happens is you get this dopamine hit of, I've now transcended the limitation that I had. So then you look for more limitations and you keep going, and it's the same thing. And you're wanting that sort of hit of like the triumphant.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that keeps you caught in the loop.
Hmm.
And so where is there a break, or where is there a sort of a stoppage or a completion in things like shadow work? Because and a lot of people don't, they're like, well, there's so much, there's always healing to do. Yeah, but when you're always trying to look for it,
Yeah.
you're always putting yourself into that frame.
Yeah.
And in a way, you've really got to see whether you're addicted to the fact that you feel like you're becoming triumphant every time you're transcending. And so that in a way is like still the illusion, that's still a game within the game. And so that's why that's why I say, like, if you started at the top of the mountain, then what?
I say that. Yeah.
It's like
I just saw that. Sorry. Yep.
Yeah, saying you haven't got anything to climb. It's like, well, then what? And then we go into this panic mode often of like, well, what's the point of life? And that's really the true work. Because when it's like, well, if there's just being and just like enjoying this journey and going through it and letting things come as they come and taking them on as they come, like, it's like, well, that's such a different reframe to your life. And that's where I think you can still be that courageous warrior, but without the sense of you're looking for battles. I think they say that if you carry a hammer, you're going to find nails everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when you drop the weapons, drop the armor, there's nothing to fight for apart from just shifting into this enjoyment of being and learning on a different, subtler layer. It's like it's a completely different dimension of being. And so that's really what the Aquarian age is about. And it's inclusive, but also it's like, take the foot off the accelerator and the car still goes. So it's like, we don't have to be racing all the time. We can just coast a bit sometimes and just take it in.
And I think too, that angle change of perception, when you're looking up, like you think that like you've got the four, how you said you've got the quad, what was it? What was it? The quad?
Quadrinity.
Yeah,
like
quadrinity.
Like Trinity, but quad meaning four.
Yes, and it made sense because it's like we've been taught in our stories that we've got to always climb. And so we look for the climb. And then when you explained it, it's like, no, the light actually has to descend to now express within the body. I actually found that beautiful, because then I was like, wow, how can I express the divine through my body now? So that's also just as amazing and powerful. And it should be something that I should look at as well, not just look at that's the only way, but how do I allow the light to sort of enter? And that made just that perspective change actually changes a lot. And I found that through the geometry, through seeing different patterns and angles and just looking at shapes differently, it does unlock a lot. And people don't understand. They think this is just spare time or it's useless, but I've noticed so much insight, so much drops in. So it's such a practical application in my life. Like, people do not understand how this is not just for me to just sit around and just, which I love. I'm actually addicted. You can't, once you start, it's like 6 hours into it and I'm still, you know, however, it's an actual thing that helps you in practical life. You know, it helps you slow down your mind, see different things, pull things out. And it teaches you, if you have a higher perspective of something, you will be able to see so many different shapes and angles and possibilities. And I think it's beautiful to, you know, like, as soon as I started to like feel it, you know, I introduced it to him. I was like, dude, you got to do this with your kids and your wife. And it sort of like goes on, you know, I did it to my kids. And then I came across your book, and it's like, you share this stuff because it's actual, you can feel it. I'm tangibly seeing the benefits. It's not here, you know?
Yes, it's the cheapest psychological session you'll ever do. So, you know, like
So,
we're all paying for therapy, right? Or like people so going to therapy and counseling and talking about these things. Do geometry for like an hour. And it allows the mind, you see, because it's like a meditative, like an eyes open. And as you know, I'm very much about eyes open meditations, you know, like walking meditations, just, you know, just around your daily practice, you can be in a meditative state, still functioning. And, you know, that's actually the most beautiful way. That's more like the tantric way of being. You know, the yogic way of being is shut your eyes, disconnect from the senses, and then you're going into that vanishing point. Whereas with the Tantra, it's about pull the senses in. It's about really enliven them all and be in the world, you know, but you're sort of not attached to it. And so the quadrinity psychology, as you say, like, we've got to have sort of frameworks of language for it. So in order to make it easy, I say about this dissension process into the body. But really we could say that it's more about the blossoming from within, right? So your actual seat where you actually reside is that consciousness itself. And then the more that you sort of, it blossoms, it comes into manifest form. So it's gone from the sort of internal world into the external world. And so that's the same as dissension. You have consciousness, the light, the integration part, which is, as I explained to you, for me, it was speaking about that when you're involved in something, when something's caught your attention, you're already in the process of integration. Like we often, integration is the completed step. And that can feel like such a huge distance from like concept to like, it doesn't feel integrated. No, you're in the stream. Like it's in you. Like you're looking for it. You're allowing it to work in your life. Like you said, like the geometry, it takes you. That's integration. It's integrating.
Wow.
And then the transformation process happens. So the alchemy happens. So after it's kind of caught you, you've got the flavor. Then it's like, okay, what happens to my body to feel more of this, to enable to access more of this? And that's the transmutation, the alchemy part. So it's not so much that you're alchemizing to get to somewhere. It's more that it's already there. You just need to do the alchemy to realize it more.
yeah.
So you see, it's a very subtle difference, because one's like trying to get somewhere. One's just saying, well, if I take off my jacket, then I reveal my t-shirt.
Yeah.
You know, if I take the t-shirt off, I reveal my chest. And then so it's about the sort of dissolving at the same time as kind of like you feel like you're gaining. And so a big difference in that, we're so used to, like you said, that gaining process of battling and winning. So we're kind of like reverse engineering this process of, you know, like the sun is always there, but the clouds cover it.
Yeah.
As soon as the clouds go, it reveals the sun, but the sun was always there in the first place. And so all we need to do is just kind of keep with the alchemy, releasing the clouds until we realize the light is so beaming from within. And then that's when it clicks, like how to be divine in human form. And that's the pulse.
And do you reckon that's sort of, that stems from all our stories, like those clouds?
I was going to say this. Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Why do we have so many layers that we have to, why are we starting from something with so many layers if we're already at the top? True. Like, all those clouds and stuff that have to move, all those layers to take off, to reveal. For me, I feel like what got us to the point, or what put us to the point where it's almost like a remembering. You know what I mean? Like, what pulled us so far away from what we already were.
The original,
The original, yeah.
But it's really interesting, because in truth, there really is no journey, there really is no clouds, right? But that is such a difficult concept for us to fully realize in that sort of moment. So in a way you could say that all of this is the game, it's the illusion that we've come into. So another way you could say is that the spirit doesn't have any clouds, right? So it's perfect in itself. It's only that sort of the human construct that really you could say that has the different layers and the different things. And so that's all because of the imprinting of the human form in this reality. So, it's like when you get given a set of cards, you play a card game, and your hand that you get given, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to win this, but you don't let anyone know that, right? But you're like, but you've got like one ace and you're thinking, man, if I can get lucky. And so the whole game is the fact that we're swapping the cards, we're evolving, and then you're trying to complete your hand. So you start with like a sort of a fun handicap, right? So it's kind of like, and that's all part of it. But essentially, when you realize the player that's playing that game is the one that's already perfect and whole, then you realize that the game is just for the joy. It's not that you're trying to win. You're just doing it because it's just fun. Like, that's the whole point of all games, and so the lens kind of turns from looking at the cards to looking at the one playing the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the difference is. And so that's really where we need a journey. Like, humans love stories. We love having to go through that difficult time, and then we kind of win, and then all of this, and that's all the beauty. But really, when we realize that we are the ones, the one that's playing is the most important. And that's where we turn the lens. It's like, when we take a picture, we take the picture of the beautiful scene, but we never see the photographer, right? Same thing. We're looking outwards. All we have to do is just turn that camera around and take a selfie. And it's like, oh, damn, like it's right here. Like, and so, yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. And that's what can smash through beliefs so quickly, when we realize it's not the hand, it's the one that's playing.
I think we should actually, now that we've got so into this conversation, I want people to find out who you are, basically, and I would love for everybody to know more about you and stuff, because it really does help you to see your life like as a creator, not a victim, as a person that's playing this beautiful game. And that once you know that you're in that position playing it, you have cheat codes, you can utilize this and that, and it actually takes you away from this victim mindset. And I want to just give them a little bit of backdrop in, how you start. First of all, the amount of knowledge that you have access to, brother, it is incredible. I don't think you've been asked a question and you did not have something to say about it. And it's not, and I'll tell you, I know it's the Aquarian age and everybody is obsessed with the information, but I feel that there's a difference between information and intelligence. I think we have a lot of information, but I think what I'm starting to also notice is that there's a massive difference between true wisdom and intelligence and just information. And you can tell the people that have connection to that intelligence, and it feels true in your body. It's almost like the knowing is recognizing itself. It's like this knowing is recognizing that knowing. It's like there's something there that I find is pure intelligence. And that's what and that's why I've fallen in love with learning now, because my learning is coming from wanting to know that. I didn't want to learn when it was just about information, because my heart wasn't connected. I just felt like it was more out of copy, paste, repeat. There was no emotion behind it. There was no I didn't know a why, what's the purpose of this? And it was very segmented. So if you did this, you stayed at this. There was no connection to something else. So it was very separated. And I just had no interest in it. But as soon as I found the love in my heart, and I started to see how this little piece fits over here, and now this thing is over here, and I was like, oh my God. And it became like this absolute obsession for learning. But like I said, not learning information, learning intelligence, learning the intelligence, and I want you to sort of go back and tell us who you are, how you started, how you got to this, and about your book.
Yeah, I mean, that could be quite a long story, but
We got time.
I love what you say about, the intelligence and wisdom, because what was interesting was, I mean, the book's huge. I mean, it's not arrived yet for you, but,
No.
it's 250,000 words, right? So, and I've never written a book before. I'm not a writer. It's not, to do a few, like, sort of a paragraph or a quote or something, like, that was what I liked. Just short, sharp, straight to the point, boom.
Mhm.
But then, with story, it allows you to shape, it's like a great film or a movie. It allows you to shape the narrative, and it's so beautiful because it allows it to deliver that intelligence in a streamlined way. And I think the main thing about it is that it's got to be a direct experience for the reader or for the person that's consuming the information, with meaning to them, or meaning to your life. Otherwise, like you said, it's just information. Like, it's a good fact to know, or a fun thing to quote off, but if it doesn't really connect to you, and that's why I sort of shape it to say, well, look, there's the stars, this is the story, now you enter it, you taste the flavor, and tell me what you experience. Like, here's the gateway. I can take you to the gateway, you walk through it, and then you tell me and show me what you found, because really, everybody has such a different opinion of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like, learning is, like you said, we get taught and then we repeat. But what we're not told to do is to learn it, then fully take it in and do that journey ourselves, and then come back with our own feedback to say, actually, you said to turn right and there was going to be a dragon there. And actually, when I got there, it was a flower bed. And so it's like so unique. And that's what I think is the beauty of empowering people to say, okay, here's some guidance with the stars. Now go into this story and see what is there for you, because it's going to be so different for everyone. And so that's what allowed me to change the narratives of the original star stories into what I say is the more divine feminine way of seeing it, which is really just saying that it's more of a balanced way of seeing it, because our conditioning, going back to that, the fighter and the warrior, as you were saying, all of our stories have conditioned us to believe that's the way. Right. So the damsel, she's kind of like, she hasn't got much. She's just purely innocent. She finds herself in trouble. She's in the tower. And then the hero comes and he saves her. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally like, that is the storyline,
Yeah.
that's been written about the stars, been written about Disney films. It's like, it's everywhere. And that is partially true, because the masculine needs that kind of sense of purpose, right? Because if the masculine energy doesn't have a focus, that's where it becomes wild.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so much, it's full testosterone, it's full, like, willpower. And that's the beauty of masculinity, because it's the passion, right? Without that passion, like, nothing gets done. Like, we need that instigator for the tantra to start to flow. But from the divine feminine aspect, like, it's more about that she can go within and discover that she only really needs herself. Like, so she can empower herself. And so same with the masculine as well. But, and this is why the narrative in one of the stories is that this Princess Andromeda, she's chained to the rocks, and this basically, this water dragon's gonna eat her. She's been sacrificed, And in the story, the hero comes, breaks the chain, saves her, kills the dragon. Typical story. When you actually go into that story in the stars, what I discovered is the fact that while she's on the rocks chained, she's in that moment of pure death. She's meeting the dragon, right? So she's in that moment. Now, if you've ever been in that moment of where your life is right on the cutting edge, it's such a deep process of where you really get to know yourself pretty damn quick in that moment, and the flood of what happens. And so I changed the narrative, like, well, actually, what she does, she realizes who she is. She realizes that, hold on a minute, I've got this power to break my own chains, break my own beliefs. And so she breaks her own chains, and instead of fighting the dragon, well, why would you fight something that is so powerful? Wouldn't you want to befriend it? Wouldn't you want to tame it? Wouldn't you want to be the master of that dragon energy, the Kundalini? And so in the story, it's like, well, then she meets the dragon, and, there's this initial kind of like confrontation where you meet that sort of subconscious part of yourself. But actually, you realize that if you work with it, if you befriend it, you become the master of it, or in co-creation with it, then you are now a wielder of dragon energy. You're a mother of dragons, right? So why would you slay a dragon when you can ride a dragon? Like, it doesn't even make sense. And this is the difference in how we can change the narrative. It's the same story, but when we truly go into it, we find a completely different narrative that's never been presented before. And that's what I've done in the book.
So is that how you wanted us to basically see it now from our own perspectives as well? Because you said the stars are all there. You said to me that the Bible's there. You said Goldilocks and the Three Bears, that every story's there. So you're saying that if you tell me where the stars are and what positions, and this is the base of it, basically I can create the story that I want to see through those. Oh, wow.
And there's obviously archetypal themes, right? So if there's the dragon and the feminine, I mean, it's going to be a certain kind of narrative that's there.
Yes.
But that's all that the astronomers did, right? So you would sit around campfires in the indigenous tribes, and you would look up and you would see like Saturn and Jupiter, right? And so that was the battle of the Titans, where you got the Olympians and the Titans, and it's Father Time, versus basically the Christ energy. And so there's this battle of Satan and Christ, right, in the stars. So, but that's a narrative, but really, when you look up at the stars, they're just the stars, and so we can then go into the story. It's like a consciousness. It's almost like you go into that story of the stars, and then you discover your own narrative, your own truth to it. And so the transmission is there to break open the fact that because that's what somebody said, that's what Aries is like, doesn't mean that's what Aries is like. And so otherwise we just repeat what's been, and we never change.
Is that so? It's almost like a pattern interrupt, and the more collective people believe in that one story, it gains its own thing, right? So in order to sort of see it differently, that's what you say, you've got to go into your own hero's journey, and you've got to do your pole shift within it. So it's literally, that's like a pattern interrupt for that whole thing, isn't it?
Or just literally being, it's like when you go into something like brand new, like when you do martial arts, somebody that's never done it before, they're the best student because they've got no preconditioning.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas,
Right.
So the same way, if we go into this with this openness of just saying, okay, these are the stars, this is where they are, this is the story of what's been shared before. But in order to really know that to be true, you have to do that training. You have to go into that process and discover what's there. And then without doubt, then you can say from your authenticity, like, although the narrative is this, what I experienced is actually I explored a new doorway that wasn't even seen before, and it's this, and I found this gold. That's completely different way of opening ourselves up into this whole understanding of astrology and and life. And so that it's like new techniques, right? Like somebody that's brand new that comes into the martial arts, like they'll do something crazy which is completely unconventional. It's not trained, it's not the right thing, but somehow they've come up with some new move. And you're
Mm.
like, holy, like, I've never even seen somebody get out of that before, like
Yeah.
that. That doesn't even seem to work. But
Yeah.
because they didn't even know, they've just done it because that's what felt right in the moment. That's how we create new techniques, create new belief systems. We break the 4 minute mile,
Yeah.
right, of running. And so this is really what I'm trying to share, is that through our language and our construct and how we guide somebody through this star journey, it's got to be about bringing it back to them, bringing it back to you, bringing it back to you. What do you find? What treasure did you find? What did you experience when you were there? There's no point me just saying, well, that's how it is. Like that's not gonna, that's not progressive. It's not expansive. And obviously Aquarian age is Uranus, which is all about expansion. It's about basically, in a way, deleting the old constructs or reframing it in a way that serves us now for our now age. Because a lot of these stories, you've got to remember, like these astronomers and these stories, these can be like, thousands of years old. So what was important to them about like hunting for food, and sort of like making fire? Well, we have a modern day version of making fire, but it's not the same, it doesn't require the same thing, you
Yeah.
know? So the narrative has to change with the times. And that's why the I Ching, it's called the Book of Changes.
Yeah.
And I always say that the Book of Changes is changing, right?
Mm.
The book itself is changing. And that's what I found with the Lost Octave. I found something that was in it that changes the book. It was already in there, but it was secret, it was buried. So if I'd have just followed the same pattern of saying that there's only 64 hexagrams, then that would have been my conditioning of being like, well, there's only this. And I never would have gone and seen that next octave, that, that octave that was in there.
How did you even like that's what I want to get to though. A normal person like me and him are never going to think about this. So how did you even get the insight or the prompt or the poke to even look, to even study these things, to create this book? Like, how did it all actually come together? Because there's so much in there, and not just that, for you to actually be so confidently saying, hey, this is lost, I found this, you can change the stars. It's a big thing. Like, I could never come out. Hey guys, make your own story. Like, there is something there. Like, what brought you to this, and how did this book come about for you?
Yeah, and well, first of all, I will say that absolutely you can, because when it's your direct experience
Yes.
and it's authentic, right, that you've actually gone through it,
Yes.
nobody can take that away from you, and nobody can try and make you believe otherwise, right? Like, if you've had an experience, the only way that you can express it is the direct one that you've had. And so, when it comes to this about saying it, like, yeah, you could say it's kind of a bold move, like going into like a 3,000-year-old manuscript that's been studied for thousands of years and all. But that's why I gift the whole book in all the calculations, everything I did, how it all came about. And I said, you look for yourself. It's not for me to say. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying that, I'm wrong. I'm just saying this is what I found. I think when you go through this journey, you'll start to see everything that happened. And then you'll see it. You can only sort of take somebody to the water well. They've got to drink it in. So now, sort of regressing back into my journey at the start, it was more that obviously I kind of had this spontaneous moment. I was doing personal training, and I was working in a gym. Like it was, and I was a sports coach before that, and I sort of was in that mode, just you're training in the gym, and fitness was really important to me at that time. And I was really going into it. I lost, I don't know, about 40 kilos in body weight.
Wow.
It was like, yeah, I had a real, shift in my life. And so I got really interested in the nutrition and helping people lose weight. And my love is always to help people, right? So, or to sort of provide a way to help guide them into something that they want to do or something they want to achieve. And so this was how it sort of started. And then I got invited into a yoga session. right? And so I was like, well, why bother with yoga? It's just like glorified stretching. I had no idea at all, and obviously this was, I don't know what, 2017. So yoga was popular, but not compared to now. Like now it's just, I think like every single person that goes to a yoga class or something almost, or does it at home of some form. And so when I went in there, I'd done the yoga class and it was like, yeah, it was all right, did it, whatever. And it was at the very end that this one thing happened where the yoga teacher said, right, now close your eyes, when we were laying in that Shavasana position, the relaxation in, you just close your eyes. That one thing, I was like, why would you close your eyes when it's during the day? I know it sounds mad, but it was such a disconnect in me. So I'm like, well, you only shut your eyes when you go to sleep. Like I had no idea about it. So I closed my eyes, and then before I knew it, I was out in space. Right. So I was just in space with the stars, with the planets, and I was just cruising around, and then I wasn't in my body anymore. I was gone. I was in the stars. And so then I heard come back to your body, come back to your breath. And so I came in like a shooting star and just like jolted in my body. I opened my eyes and I could see like golden orbs around people's body. And I really felt at the time, I was like, sort of when you wake up in a bit of a daze, like, man, I'm super tired. I've been working way too hard. I've been pushing too much weight, like I just felt, and I sort of kind of, dismissed it. But there was this feeling afterwards that was like, it was like, wow, it felt really good. Yeah. And so I kind of caught the bug, right? So it was, and what I didn't realize was that I saw people's chakra systems. Oh. So that's what the orbs were. So I could see it like strings of pearls, like coming off their body. And that's sort of how my journey started. It was very visual for me. It was, and then I had experiences like I wanted to recreate this experience of how I felt after that. So I was like racing home after work, sit there, just shut my eyes, and just, and I'd just put on like meditative music, and I'd be like learning, like I'd see like images of like mudras, and I'd see breathing techniques, and I was reading about chakras, and I was just like, I was just in, like I just was soaking it all up.
Sounding like you right now.
But the thing was, like, everything I was sort of reading it kind of explained it a bit, but it wasn't as potent as what I was experiencing myself. So in the end, I just sort of abandoned all the books, and I was just concentrating on just being in that space and trying to experience things. And that's when, I had things like I was starting to see angels, I started to see galactic beings, and it was very, very visual. And then, but what's funny is that it sounds really good, right? Because it's just like, whoa, and it was amazing. But they're all the ways that spirit try and buy you in.
Yeah.
Right. So that what's funny is that the more subtle that you become, and the more sort of that you go on this journey, that in a way, the more ordinary it becomes, right? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like we often need that sense of like visions and vision quests and communicating with spirit and all this sort of stuff in this way to get us to really move into that where we truly are. And then kind of as you evolve through it all, then you realize that actually you start sort of releasing like all those visuals. You don't need that journey anymore. It's just about being. It's just about like right in this moment. And so it's not so much about the dreamscapes of going into different dimensions. It's just about like that here. And so it changed from going out of body into just more in the body, and like going deeper and deeper, like within. And so that's where, the maturity of spirituality, it evolves. And so, it's in a way like whatever it takes. That's why I say like the astrology in this book, the astrology is the gateway in, but really the book's about love and about consciousness. When you really go find the essence of this book, it's got really nothing to do with astrology. The astrology was just the buy-in, right? Yeah. It's like, that's just the medium. for us to go, oh, I like astrology. I'm really want to learn about this, the star stories and things like this. But once you go in, once it's got you, the transmission, it's like, man, this is about me discovering all of the facets of all the archetypes, about my journey of through this world. And then it's like it really becomes less about astrology and more about me experiencing this life.
Mm.
That's out of control. It's like the book of understanding,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's so true, you know, because of this book of changes, it was used as an oracle. You know, people would consult with the book, and I always say it's like a book of answers.
Mm.
You know, sort of you can ask a question to the book and open the book, and then the first thing that you read is going to give you the right answer. So I actually infused like an oracle deck into the book as well, so that it's a book that you can use daily, where you can just be like, okay, what's the decision I have to make, or
Yeah.
how do I feel about this? I can't quite grasp it. And then you can literally consult the book, because it's a living transmission. It's not like, although the words are printed on the paper,
Yeah,
it's almost like words are sort of like a changing,
Mm.
sort of
well,
living, breathing.
That's what I said to him, because he said it's a big, thick book. And I said, yes, but understand there'll be a transmission. It's not just about the wording, but I said there's a deeper layer to it. So, and it's like every time you read it, it'll literally be a new book, because those
Yeah.
are the types of books, you know, every time if you read holy text,
I was
it's
going to say,
always that,
yeah.
isn't it? It's like there's a deep. Tell me one thing though, were you always really good at maths, and did you have all that background, or no way? I've seen that 3-hour interview and I cannot believe that. No way, Rob.
He was
No,
a
this is
personal
honestly,
trainer.
He can be smart still.
He could count the kilos on the machine.
After
Yeah.
I've seen that, just how do you?
So
That's
yeah,
why-
so just
that's going to blow people's mind, because you got to understand, not our audience is obviously not even probably into astrology and stuff, but through us, they're starting to understand there's other aspects to
Yeah.
life, and they're sort of curious, right? So we're in that space, and to look at you, they'd be like, no way, he would have to have this, because you know about music, you know about Egypt, you know about Greek mythology, you know
Da Vinci,
Da
Shakespeare.
Vinci, Shakespeare, I Ching,
Mm.
you know, angel. I was just sitting there, I was like, my mind was just messed up from even thinking about that. Like, where's this coming from?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just so great as well, because that's why I say that once you realize that you are consciousness, right? Like you have this access to the whole field, right? That this is a gift already inherent within each and every one of us. This isn't something that is like somebody's blessed and that's and that's how it goes, you know. And so in school, this is why I have a huge you know, kind of thought about the school system, right? Because
We're with you.
school mathematics, like I was just average, right? So but they never taught you geometry,
Yep.
and they never taught you the meaning of that geometry with you. And that's the thing that brought me in, because when you realize that a tetrahedron actually has something to do with you, then it's like, oh, like I thought it's just, you know, just numbers. And when you realize that numbers themselves are a whole consciousness, like the number one, if you go into the number one, it's like a library, right?
Yeah.
It teaches you so many things. Like the number one, I always say, is the law of polarity, right? We often think that's the number two. But when you look at a magnet, like a strip magnet,
Yeah.
it's one thing with two different expressions.
Yes.
Like us, like we're this one human form. We have the masculine and feminine pole,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, the law of polarity, which governs like this entire 3D construct, is based in the number one. And we use these numbers like every day, like, you know, so effortlessly. And yet this can teach you one of the Hermetic laws. Like they're huge things, you know. Even the number zero, it's like it doesn't actually mean like nothing. It's still
Yeah.
a something. And it's like it's so beautiful when you get to see mathematics and things like this done in this way. So I always say, like, through the inner landscape, you can activate your own genius genes.
Yeah.
And that's really what I felt happened, as I went, the more I went internally, the more I sort of started to access more of the fullness of what's available to me. Then you start to see these patterns emerging. And there's really only sort of like, you could say there's like a set of patterns that once you sort of know those sets of patterns, it's surprising how almost like everything follows those same patterns.
Yes.
And you can apply, it's like you can apply the skills from one completely different subject into another, and they cross over. So it's like, how can sort of weightlifting cross over into writing? And it's like, well, if you do it in like reps, it's like you train yourself to do it in sections, and you get bigger and bigger, more weight. And so you find that there, between everything, you can cross over your skills. And that's why, music, mathematics, geometry, philosophy, they all actually weave beautifully. And we've been told or experienced as separate subjects.
That's what I was talking about. Exactly.
Because now it's like the renaissance of the polymath, of where it's like, it's like the upgraded version of a jack of all trades.
Yes.
Right? Because jack of all trades just dips in, whereas a polymath, you for a time you go deep into like one subject, and you're like wholeheartedly into it. Like for this book, I learned the human genome in a weekend. Right? So I learned music in like a week. I was learning quantum physics on like a super deep level, and like all the mathematics and geometry. And it sounds like so like, wow, how did he? But once you find the threads, once you find those patterns, then it's like it just starts to click, and it's like, whoa. And then because everything's a fractal of the universe, once you sort of, like I say, once you know one octave, you know all octaves. So you only have to learn 8 notes, right? So once you learn 8 notes, then you learn the whole keyboard.
Yeah.
That is for all of this stuff. Once you find those geometries, then they just multiply in other dimensions, and it becomes, you start to see the unified field. It's undeniable that everything is interconnected.
Yeah, it's like Neo. I was thinking of how you said, like, I just learned, physics in 2 days, and in the weekend I learned this, and how they just plug it in and you get connected, and it's like it's just downloaded. And I was thinking about that, and like you said, it's available to everybody. And if you look back at some of the greatest leaders of our time in the past, people who have discovered such things, they always said that they've never got information from information. They've got it from intelligence, a source. They've been connected, and we never ever sort of really valued that. We still value a lot of people who have intellect, but if you really think about it, this is what I feel is a divine feminine, is that now we're starting to tap into that knowingness, that within the body, I know this is true. There is this thing of like how you said, and I loved what you said about when you were talking about how the book came through, because it was a direct experience. And I was like, yep, that's absolutely right. That's exactly what I wanted you to sort of share, because that's when it's not a belief. It's not that I have to prove to you. It's like you just know it. You just know it. And that's what I love. Even when I was asking you, I've been doing your head in for the last couple of days, I know. And it's been awesome, because I even said to him, I said, the real person, because he's not able to tell me the exact answer. He always is making me lean back into me. He's always pointing it back to me, so that I have to sort of dig and do my own work and explore it myself. And I said, that's when that's the person, because he's always, telling me that, okay, I'm going to direct it back to you. And I think this is a beautiful, and I think the book would be an extension of that, because I haven't received it yet, but I've ordered it, and I feel like this is what that book's doing. It's not giving us the answers. It's not about that. It's about us now being told to go within and sort of like come on, everybody start to have your own direct experience, because it's different for everybody, you know. And, you know, I asked you, is it something that I can do as a beginner? And you said yes, you know, and it's like, it's beautiful, because I think if we are not invested in how long the journey takes or to get to an end point, I said, you know, that's what I was like, oh, I'm so invested in the learning and the love of what I'm sort of exploring right now. And the kids are also involved. I said, what a beautiful way to, you know, share it with friends and family, and to start from that place of like, let's investigate ourselves. And that's why we called it Be Human too, because I'm like, you know, when you change the story of where you've come from, you know, it really changes how you play now. You know, if you're being taught that we are weak, we are broken, you know, there's higher, there's better, there's stronger, then we really can't play the game well. But if you look at what you've provided us and you give us these little things and we can now start to apply it and experience it ourselves, then the rules have changed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I think the role of a good coach, right? A great coach takes something that's complicated and translates it and delivers it in a way that the student or the people that are receiving it, the athlete, can just get it in one word.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that's obviously my training that I've had, and that's, I feel like, why sort of this book has been a beautiful way, an extension now into the spiritual way of translating, say, like the quantum realm or music, and really I can present it in like 3 steps, you know, so that then that's the translation process. And I think that's what the best way now we can teach, you know, each other and help each other through this and understand these complex things, is to improve the way in which we understand it, and then how we can translate it to others. You know, the best stories are the simplest ones, you know, and that's why children learn the best through story, right? Because that's why they want a bedtime story, because they can flow on your rift, and they're in the dream, they're in the transmission, and then they fall asleep and their dreams explode and they go on the journey. So you've just led them, you know, down the path, and then there's the trees, and then it opened the gate, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're having this whole world experience. And so that's what my joy is, to see the feedback of like, okay, once you got there, like, what did you find? Like, what was there that I went through this and I experienced this, but what did you find? And so that's why it's so beautiful to do it in this way. And you were saying about the love of learning, right? And that's really interesting, because the word philosopher, right? So Sophia means the love of Sophia. So a philosopher is the love of Sophia, and Sophia is wisdom.
Wow.
So a philosopher is the lover of wisdom. And so that's exactly what you just said. It's about just being in the joy of learning, like, all of this, without thinking like, you know, oh, I need to learn this to complete this and make my life better. It's like just knowing that by you embarking on this journey, like by somebody opening the book and just reading like a sentence, you are changing your life just simply by doing that, you know. And so, you know, and contemplating these things, or just taking like a paragraph that day and just letting it be with you. Like, and that's why I say the book is the initiation of ether. So in the very shamanic, you know, medicine wheels, you would do like fire and water, and you would have different rituals and processes. And, you know, it's kind of very shamanic of the 4 directions. And it's always been the quadrinity. But with this, the actual book is about the 5th, which has not been spoken of before. And it's like, well, how do we access ether, right? Because it's non-tangible. It's like, what is it? And so this is how, just by simply reading the book, by just going through the whole process, you are doing that initiation. And it's not something that you can say, I'm going to do it. It just happens. Yeah. And that's where it's, you will change, like 100%, you will change. Reading that book, you will change. And that's the whole point of it, is that it's not meant to be like there is a lot of learning in there, and if you
Yeah.
want to, it's meant to be about just read it, and it will work on you. And because the language, like every single word in that book, is meticulously placed and directed in a certain way. Like you'll never hear the word understanding in the book. There is no word understanding. There's inner standing, but never.
Oh, wow.
Innocent.
Okay. Wow.
To understand is to stand under.
Yeah.
Right. So how many times I've done it when I've coached, do you understand? And they go, yeah. Right. But that means that really they're not on the same understanding as you, because they're now standing under.
Hunger.
Yeah.
Right. So when we understand each other, they now share in the same level of transmission as that you're giving.
Wow.
I'm gonna use this tomorrow. Understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, like, how simple is it that, like, just certain words, and that you've kind of been conditioned to say certain things. And, you know, I even say it now, like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I understand this. And I'm like, and I catch myself, you know, because the linguistic patterns. And of course, when you're teaching, you know, young children, or well, even adults, but like the language that you use, we expect a certain result because we're telling them a certain way, but we're not necessarily wondering about if we delivered it a different way, then spontaneously we'd get a different result. And that's the same with parenting, the same with coaching. And I'm like, well, why not the same with spiritual knowledge, right? Because it's the same thing. Like for me, in order for me to tell the story, if I tell it in a certain way, then you get the expansion. If I tell it in another way, you go, oh, that was a nice story, and then you forget it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas it can that one story could change your life. And that's why I say, like, it's everything in that book is done with the person in mind reading it too. And I had to break my own beliefs to write it like that as well. You know, I was coming across my own limitations, so I had to break my own beliefs in order to deliver it in the most open and free way that I possibly could at this time.
It's interesting because it hit me because when I was watching all your podcasts, and a lot of them are based on astrology, and so I know a lot of the people that you speak to have a lot of knowledge on astrology. However, even though you're right, it pulled me in. Nothing about the astrology and the angles and the numbers actually sort of engaged me. It was the story and what it meant to me and how my heart was getting activated and what I was applying to what was being said, you know, and I was just like, oh, wow, it is so different. And it wasn't intellectual, like I was saying, it was more like me uncovering myself through the stories. And, you know, when I look at, even how you guys discovered all the petroglyphs in the pyramids and stuff, and you guys were making up the stories in real time. And I was just blown away because I was like watching, like, you guys just making a movie. Literally, it was just you guys blowing my mind and each other's mind. And I want to talk about that because that was incredible to actually watch. If anyone hasn't watched it, that video, it's 3 hours long, but what a recording. It was in real time. You, Robert Edward Grant, Alan was there for a little bit, but there was a lot of other people there, and you guys were just doing the discovering of the King's chamber and all the petroglyphs in there. And one by one, each wall literally came alive with a story and a movie. And, you know, and one thing, I mean, you spoke about Christmas tree and one thing, and then you went to, you know, the 3 bears over there. And I was like, how is he connecting Christmas and tree bears? And it was incredible. So can you share like how that sort of happens, and how do those different stories from all different parts of the world and different cultures, because we fight about stories, right? We also separate based on stories and who's told the story. But what I saw was that so many different stories, but they were all interconnected. And it was incredible because maybe that culture says this name, but it really is also this thing for the other culture, and it's the same thing. And it's exactly what you said, the stars have it there. The interpretation is what is like giving it different meaning. But it was beautiful to see how, there was you know, like I said, there was bears and there was dragons, and it was just all connected though. So give us a little bit on that, because that was hectic to watch. It was incredible though. Blew my mind.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, it was so great, and as I say, that was only the second time that I'd spoke with Robert, and he was showing the drawings that he'd seen on the walls, and so when he was showing this, because I know the star stories, so it's like knowing a whole realm of archetypes. And so these the normal sort of astrology, what most people think is like the zodiac signs, right? So the 12 zodiac signs. Well, really, that's only 25% of astrology,
Okay.
right? Such a small, and so if you think about it, how popular that's become, like, oh, you're this sign, and then you're a certain archetype, certain way, and that's why it either resonates with people, or they think, oh, it's just made up, or it doesn't really resonate with me, because it's so general. That's like saying like a cage fighter, oh, it's just a cage fighter. It's like, wow, the different levels of disciplines that they can have, and the different skills and mindset. It's like, so the nuances is the star stories, which is what you call the 36 deacons.
Yeah.
And that's what I was explaining to you about the Hydra. You're connected to the Hydra deacon. And so, again, it's the petroglyphs aren't like astrological signs. It's like saying to three different people, draw a tree. They're all going to be different interpretations, but the essence is the same.
Yeah.
So this is when pattern recognition is like, we're so used to saying, well, that's not identical to that, so it's not the same. That's not really how consciousness works. It's like, what's the core principle of each thing?
Yes.
What's it trying to explain and explore? And that's why different drawings throughout different cultures, you think, well, they're not saying, they don't look the same, but actually they are saying the same story,
Yeah.
even if they're drawn in a different way. And that's the beauty of the diversity or the interpretation. And so when he was showing the petroglyphs around the room, I'm thinking, this is interesting. I can see that story. That's in the stars. That's another one that's in the stars. It's like sort of the eagle and the arrow. And and as he's explaining it, and that's why I was like, I kind of have a gist, because I know the locations of the stars, right? So when he's going around the walls, it's almost like the walls are like a 3D canvas.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what it seemed like.
So I was sort of going, well, that is where it is in the stars, and then to the left, that is where that is, and as we're going around, I'm just thinking, it's definitely this is it. And because the star stories really go back to Egypt as well, because on the Dendera stone in Egypt, which is in the temple of Hathor,
Yep.
on the ceiling are all the deacons.
Oh.
So it makes sense that the Great Pyramid and the Hathor temple would be aligned. And we know the pyramids are aligned to the stars anyway, so that's a great giveaway. So that's what really I started to see it. And that's when I mentioned, and I said, I think these are the deacons. And so, we started to test it. And that's why I said, like, we can actually start to predict where drawings are on the wall. We don't know exactly how they're going to look, but we can say, like, there's going to be a fish there, or there's going to be a lion there somewhere. And then lo and behold, as we're scanning the room, and then, Robert found this sort of Vesica Pisces shape,
Yeah.
and he's like an eye or something. And I'm like, it just clicked, like, that's where the fish is. And it's like, yes, it's a fit. And so, like, it was so perfectly placed. And that's what makes it sort of kind of undeniable, really, that it's two separate people looking at the same thing, right? So Robert had his experience. He was just drawing it from what he was seeing.
Yeah.
But he's not thinking, oh, I'm going to put that there or make that into something. He's just drawing it raw. Then I've come in and gone, well, everything you've drawn follows the star map.
Yeah, I can map it.
So then together, it's like we could then discover like the orientation of the room. And then that's when the breakthrough moment, you realize that, that the pyramid is a stargate, basically. And so the sarcophagus itself, is essentially this sort of seat or this place that you would lay down in. And you basically coordinate yourself with the stars and with the meridian lines of the earth. And basically you align yourself, and you can basically stargate yourself to any of the stars. like it's like a portal, you know.
Yeah.
And
And
so
and
makes some,
Rob, you know how it's aligned to the Orion constellation, right? And then you've also got the Last Supper, which you guys also discovered is it's looking at the Last Supper through the Aquarian age, right? So does that mean that consciousness knew it was going to be decoded this time?
that's a great question. I mean, I kind of feel like these things are time encoded, right?
Mm.
So on a next level of sort of consciousness, it's kind of like if you were to sort of encrypt something or to keep something hidden, and this
Yep.
has been done throughout all time. You know, the Tibetans, they would bury what they call like treasures. And these can be physical treasures, and these can also be like consciousness treasures.
Yep.
They bury them in time, and then it's prophesized in the Tibetan culture that certain people would reincarnate, and then they would be guided to find these treasures. And and obviously we see things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there's been many Tibetan texts and things like that, and they're called termas, treasures. And so these are like time encoded. And so that's what I was saying about turning the camera around at the one who's taking the picture, because Leonardo da Vinci's painting is there, and it was only because of the orientation of the stars that I was like, well, if I was in that room looking at this with the stars, where would I be standing? So again, it's looking back at the one who's created the painting, not just the painting. And this is the whole thing about looking within. And I'm like, well, if I must be standing in that place of our now age of Aquarius, right? So that just blew my mind, because it's almost like we're discovering this now, because we are at that same sort of frequency or alignment to see how it works. And I just think it's so beautiful. And as I say, the Shakespeare work that I've linked with Alan's, I
Crazy.
found a Shakespeare code in the human DNA. Like
How?
DNA wasn't even scribed then, right? So you're
Hold
thinking,
on,
well,
hold
how?
on. What does that even mean?
So there's particular codes, right, within Shakespeare. Like Alan goes into more of the codes of Shakespeare, not so much about the words and things like that. It's more about the cryptography, because that was so
cryptography.
huge.
Yes.
Like that was so huge back then, because you got to remember that this knowledge, like even what we're speaking today, this was hidden knowledge. People would have died rather than spoke about a dodecahedron.
It's crazy. Yeah.
People were like sworn into secrecy with this thing, because these are powerful things to go into and to express. So everything's encoded, and so they were finding more and more ways to encode this information. And so as I went into the Shakespeare codes and through Alan's work, and then I was linking the astrology to it, and obviously the human DNA that I'd linked to the astrology, then all of a sudden I was doing the DNA, and I can see that there's a Shakespearean code, right, which is called the Triple Tau cross, right? And this is a deeply esoteric code, and it's basically 3 T's, so TTT, and you'll see this in Alan's work. It's there everywhere. And this is actually linked to the Christ crucifixion, because there was 3 crucifixions.
Yes.
Yep.
3 crosses. Well, they didn't necessarily have the top part of the cross, right? So there would be T crosses rather than what we normally see as the Christ cross.
Yes.
I've seen that
Yes.
on necklaces, on pendants. I've seen 2 crosses. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So TTT, right, is this triple tau cross, and this is like a deeply esoteric idea. Well, in the human genome, there is a TTT part of the DNA, right? And so I thought, this could just be a coincidence. Okay, when I took that part in the DNA and then I linked it to the astrology, and then I found out the date coincided with the 24th of the 6th, right? So 24th of the 6th. Well, in Shakespeare's code, the most potent number, the sacred number of Shakespeare code is 624.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing.
Yep.
So hold on a minute. So in the DNA, convert that into the date, and then the date turns out also to be the same date that's written in Shakespeare. So now we've got two things linked. Like
Yep.
this, I was just like blown away, and like what I shared with Alan, I'm like, you got to see this, because how? And this is where you think, well, what was kind of written first? This is where time, that fourth dimension, it's like, was that DNA code guided to be written in that way? In our modern day, was it sort of the guy who decided to go, oh, I'm going to name that part T? Was that all placed there, or was it predetermined? Like, this is all the beauty of the mystery.
Yes.
All I know is that, like, the more that I've gone into the Shakespeare and in Egypt, they're all linked. Shakespeare, Egypt, astrology, they all combine, which is funny because you kind of got like Robert's work, Alan's work, and then what I've come in. And that's why it's been really interesting that we all connected and we come at it from different angles, and we can enmesh it into this harmonious.
And it's almost like all of you are pointing at the same thing. So everybody is pointing at this time. So bringing wherever that information is being decoded, however it's being decoded, it's still coming back. So exactly, yours still proves his still, proves yours. It's almost like
all complementing each other.
Everyone's just complementing and pointing at the same thing. And then going back and decoding previously, like the Da Vinci's and obviously Shakespeare and everything that was in the stars too. You're like, okay, we can take it further back, and it's still pointing here. It's almost like the story just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, this way or this way. It's still pointing to this now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say, like, every story ever told, every mystery, it's all in the stars. And if you can go into that field and start to work with it, and it's not so much that you actually go out and look at the stars, although that's a beautiful thing. It's this understanding that stars are like consciousness. They're like archetypal consciousness. And so when you go into like Orion and understand like what's that about, and why is Orion like all around the world? Like, I mean, megaliths and monuments and like huge things are aligned to this. It's like, why is that across the whole planet? There's got to be a reason. Like, you don't just do these things because you're bored. So it's all there to show us in stone. It's like, what's written in stone? There's nothing necessarily written there. The stone itself and how it's positioned is showing you the story just by being its alignment to the stars. And that's, if you think about it, in the Grand Gallery in Egypt, right? So the pyramids, when you walk up to the King's Chamber, you go up the Grand Gallery. Well, what's the Grand Gallery? Well, it's the stars. It's God's gallery, right? So back then, to see a movie, you would have a campfire and you'd look up.
Yeah.
Like, you would see the story playing out, and that's where you get the native cultures where they pass on teachings based on the links to the stars and the seasons.
Dream time.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
indigenous Australians have dream time, and they relate everything back to the stars and the sky and everything like that.
Yeah, well, that is the cosmic intelligence, right? So that's the visible cosmic intelligence we can see. So it's like, well, if you want answers, you look up and you see the moon and you see the eclipse and you see the stars and the planets. And so this is how they actually, it was a matter of life and death for them, because, it's all agriculture. So like when you go way back to first man and woman, it's sort of like, well, we need to survive. So if you plant in the wrong season, or if you don't understand when the rains are coming or when's everything going to blossom, like, you need to know this stuff in order to eat, when to hunt, like how to keep a recycle on, if you're going to, use animals for food, and how you would hunt. Like, this is all linked to the stars and to the seasons. And this is the massive disconnect we've had of now, and that's why I say we need to sort of almost modernize our understanding of seasons and stars to suit our lifestyle now and still get that beautiful message.
So tell me something, how could someone utilize this book and really start to understand more about their story? Obviously, it has to be interpreted by them. They've got to go inside, like you say. But what are the sort of like the fundamentals? Like, so if they know sort of their star sign, they work out their deacons. Do they work out like, okay, the deacons, this is sort of like a base of like what my nature is. Is that how it works? And they sort of start to build on that, or how does that work for someone?
Yeah, no, great. And so the main thing I would always say, because this is the most, I always say start at the end.
Okay.
And so in the book, it's called the Law of Octaves.
Yeah.
Right. So the end is the beginning and the beginning is the end. That's the Law of Octaves. Right. And so that's massive when you think about it, because if you know the end at the beginning, it changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so often that's where people think, oh, but then the romance has dropped out of the story, or it's like, no, trust me, when it comes down to your human life and your human experience, to know the end at the beginning is massive. It gives you that direction. You see what's possible, and that's why we have dreams as children. We want to be an astronaut or a fighter pilot or whatever. It's like, because we want to hold that ideal, because that's what really allows us to steer our whole life. So with the stars, when a certain sort of destiny point for you, it's not that it's so confined that that's how it's going to be. It's almost like saying that you're going to win, but how you win depends on what you do. So that's so different. Now you think about that belief system in the cage fighting, right? It's like, if you know you're going to win, like 100% you're going to win. Well, first of all, you are probably going to win, because that belief system is so strong. It's like, but then you get to create how you win, but know that inevitably you're going to get there. That changes your whole entire way you approach something, rather than being like, I could lose today. I could get really hurt. Like, the doubts in there. So when you know the maps, it's like, you're going to get there, but how you decide to go there is your choice.
Yeah. And it's like Robert says, like, because we already know we've won, so you wouldn't give yourself all the power, all the weapons, all the tools and technologies and say, now play the game, because it would be boring. So it's almost like you've created this real fun game, knowing that you're going to win, but here you've hidden an axe here, you've hidden a thing there, a gold coin there. And that's why we like platform games, and we're sort of like addicted to that stuff, because it's like we love those next level. But like you said, every time someone's played Mario, they've played it, even though the screen looks the same, we've taken different paths every time.
Different, yeah.
It
becomes creative. You have creative, there's something
you take
creative
more risk.
about it,
You take more risk next time. You're going to put more dangerous stuff. You're going to go and stuff it. I'm going to go past that and going to try and get the extra 2 coins because I'm confident now. Like, you've done it. Like, it's like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the thing to know for number one is that you are all the signs, right? You are everything. You're all the signs. You're all the deacons.
Okay.
That's rule number one. That is the ultimate truth.
Before this, we were trying to work out what we were, and we're like having a competition. We're everything.
I'm better than I'm better than
Look, it says. And then I thought I was a swan, and I got upset.
So this is like where, that's what I say, like, sometimes the real truth of it, like knowing that you are the spirit, then it kind of like, it's weird for the human mind, because we're like, oh, well then what's the point? Like, if I'm all the sign, what's the point of me learn? It's like, no, but it's a different way. It's a way to say, like, no matter what happens, like, you are this spirit. No matter the sign, we all go through. Remember, the astrological signs are every year. Yeah. So everybody goes through everybody else's sign, like, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. So we go through 12 months.
Yeah, and so that's why, like, certain months, like for you personally, like, you'll have a certain month of the year, you're like, man, I really don't like it in November. Yeah. Like, it's just like, you have just this thing about it. Yeah, because you're experiencing that other sign. Oh. So it's a part of you that you're not open to.
That makes sense.
I'm going to pay attention to this.
Right. So this is how we get to understand each other on such a huge level. Like, I have so much more compassion, I would say, for other signs, and because I know their journey. So if somebody's like in a deep depression or feeling like their life is collapsing, instead of perhaps you're thinking, oh my, that person's always like their life's always collapsing. It's like, yeah, but that's written in the stars.
What? Like, so what can that person do?
Yeah.
This is a good point.
So I'll give you a great example of this, and you'll love this one because this is probably linked to the MMA and everything. So everybody knows about Scorpio, right? Or if you haven't, then most people kind of hear about Scorpio that, it's a full-on sign, right? So
Okay.
it's all about death and rebirth, right?
Mm.
So that's a general landscape. So if anybody's like a Scorpio, it's going to be about really going deep. It's not surface level, So in the story of Scorpio, for example, there are 8 rebirths that you have to go through.
Ooh.
Exactly, right? So, and this can happen throughout your span of your life, and you might not even get through all 8 in this lifetime.
Wow.
Really? They're gonna have
So,
a lot.
yeah, so you actually don't start at the first level, you actually start at the second level.
Mm.
And then so you start as the scorpion, okay, and then you move up and you become the lizard, and that's the next evolution. And so, but when in the book, when I went into the lizard, it was actually like, like the kimono dragon.
Komodo, yes.
The Komodo, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was like, that's what it feels like to me. Like it's not like just a normal lizard. It's like
Oh, no,
the
it's
kimono.
big, strong, yeah.
So, but you think about it, from scorpion to kimono dragon, like the transformation
Big
that has
jump.
to take place. It's quite a big jump. And
Mm.
so this is where, if you were to just say, "Oh, I'm a Scorpio," like you're working on that plane.
Mm.
Like if you don't know the other planes, like you don't know how your journey transcends. So basically, you have to, you basically get stung by your own self. You
Yeah.
die, you rebirth into the kimono dragon, and then the kimono dragon goes into the serpent.
Is that where
And
it
so,
turns out to be the eagle at the top? And that's
yeah, we're getting there.
Oh.
We're getting there. There's a couple more steps.
Patient.
So then you can become into the serpent, and so that's a really interesting one because you think, well, maybe the serpent should be lower, but serpent's about the kundalini, right? So you got the kimono dragon energy, and then you got the kundalini and healing as well, the serpent energy. And like I said to you about turning poison into potion, right? This is all the alchemy of the serpent, right? So everything that all of the tough times that you've been given, how do you alchemize that to become your greatest gifts? And then you go into the wolf, right?
Wow.
So this big shift, right? So you think about this in just your own evolution. Then you become the eagle, and that's not the top.
Oh.
So you've gone from wolf, right? So it's on the ground. Now you become the eagle. And most people, it's like the eagle is like the highest, animal, can see all the thing. The next version is the phoenix.
Ooh.
So you become the phoenix, so that, a bird on fire. And then the final iterations to the octave. So most of what's been written about before is like up to about the eagle. But actually, when you go deep, you've got the phoenix. And of course, that's where you are able to sort of transform yourself at will. So you go into a situation and you're like, I come across an obstacle, and you're like, I know I can alchemize this. I can change myself to accomplish or get over this obstacle or whatever. It's not, you see almost like an obstacle as ways of learning rather than challenges.
Yep.
It's that mindset of like, sort of, perhaps they get it in the military, it's like they run that extra mile, like just because they know. Like you start to search life out as ways to upgrade yourself all the time. That's the phoenix sort of mindset. And then what's beautiful is that opposite Scorpio is Taurus, right? So that's its complementary sign. And in Taurus, there is the star system, the Pleiades, and the Pleiades are known as the 7 doves. And what happens is on the octave, so the octave is the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next on the same note, yeah? So as you come from the Phoenix, you actually sail across the Taurus and you become the descending dove of the Holy Spirit.
Ooh.
And when you get, and that's why Taurus in the book, in the Lost Octave, is gate 72, because that's where it finishes, right? Because we go through all this ascension process of like going through the different levels, evolve. And then actually, what's the final step is to be the dove of peace embodied.
Wow.
It's about all of that transformation is now in here. And so this is how we can understand like our evolution. So if you're born, Scorpio is a prominent gate for you, or in a certain particular area in your life, like know that you are going to be going through dramatic shifts where pillars of your life can literally be pulled from underneath you. But let's say you can upgrade to the next, and it doesn't feel great. But when you understand that is part of your path, it gives you, that's what I say, know the end at the beginning. Like, rather than like, why is this happening to me every 2 years or every 7 years? Like, I've got married, I've got divorced, I do this sport, and then I do that, and then I have this job, and then I do that. Well, maybe that is your path. Like, maybe there's nothing actually wrong with you at all. This is all inbuilt in your imprinting. And so, the stars and the planets, when you're born, they have frequencies that encode into you. And that's why we look a certain way, and why when you see certain signs look together, they can look similar.
So it doesn't matter when we're born. If I'm Aquarius, does that really? Because I feel like Scorpio makes a lot of sense right now.
No, but he said we are all signs, and Scorpio can be prominent in some areas with you. So makes sense, right?
So in general, you can say you're all signs, but then, like I was saying, you get given like a hand, like a set of cards, this to start your journey with.
Yeah.
That's like your star signs.
Because what was that thing you showed me? The Piscis, what's that fish with the diamond?
Yeah, Ostrinus, yeah.
Okay. We looked that up, and it's mentioned something about the Assyrians. I'm Assyrian, and I'm Aquarian. So I felt like, how was it so resonant? Like, how did it just boom?
Yeah, and that's so funny, because that is the one that we discovered. That's the one I said about that was on the wall, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the 4 royal stars of Persia.
Okay.
Right. So, like, different astrologers had different ideas of the stars, and in Persia they had what they know as the 4 royal stars, and Fomalhaut, which is Piscis Ostrinus, it was seen as like the blessing. And that's why in all the artwork that I've done, I took the original deacons and I've modernized them into our understanding now. Because if you were to look at sort of like how they were drawn before, like they're very beautiful, but it's of that generation. That's why I've done all the drawings. And so the diamond is because that Fomalhaut was known as like basically the most sort of rewarding, auspicious moment. So in the whole of like the Persian astrology, it's like that's the gem, right? So that placement is literally where you find like abundance, you find freedom, you find diamond consciousness, right? And so that's where it's so beautiful, where we can, as you say, it's like, how does that connect so deep with me? Yeah, because you were imprinted at that time when it was linked directly there. And so this is the beauty of the synchronicity and how we realize that we are us and the stars. It's the same thing.
And I'll tell you another thing that we spoke about, how people are doing a lot of trauma work now and shadow work. And as you're saying this and explaining how we have our stories, you do realize when you start at the end and you look back, it's really not a trauma. It's like, the story we've created about it is become our trauma, but they're also the gems that we can use to alchemize. So just changing the angle of how you're seeing it, the perception. And that's why it's such a big thing for people to understand that, honestly, doing geometry, even looking at patterns, even exactly what you said, you start to notice patterning, you start to recognize. And I know there's a lot of people that dismiss us and say, oh, you're gonna make everything mean something. But it's not just about meaning, it's about recognizing there is a pattern. And once you recognize there is a pattern, well, you're on top of that then. And so you look back and you understand how everything had to play out exactly how it did for you to be here, right? But it was not conscious. You weren't aware. But now you can actually go forward and say, okay, so if I know there's this pattern and I have these are the qualities that I have being imprinted at that time, well, what do I want to do with that? If you now know as a Scorpion that those are the stages or phases, it's actually quite empowering, because you actually like, wow, look at who I become.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and it's incredible. Like that's actually, it could either be a very scary thing looking like, oh my gosh, but if you know that that's the way you actually, you know, your journey is, and that's how you find and you become the dove. It's like, wow, wouldn't you want to do that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where the beauty in the story of Scorpio. I wrote it through the labors of Hercules, and
Mm,
this is a great one because this is a real old sort of Greek myth, right? So the different labors of Hercules. So in the story, there's 12 labors, but again, I actually found that there's 13.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
So
said
and
he kills me. I said he kills me. So,
yeah. 13 is such an important number because 13 is the divine feminine. So, like astrology, you have the 12 signs. Well, no wheel goes around without the central hub.
true.
That's 13. And when you
Oh,
look at like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, the 13th would have been Guinevere. Like the Mary Magdalene would have is the apostle of the apostles. She's the 13th.
Oh
So
gosh.
that's why 13 as a number is always been seen as like bad
Is
and
that
don't
where
connect.
they've taken it out of lifts and floors and everything? They've taken out the divine feminine.
Exactly. That's how brutal the divine feminine's been cut out of, and why they don't want you to know about 13, because that's the gateway out of the game, right? So that's the passcode. So, so you see like how it's been woven into it. So I found out through my journey through the Hercules story is that there was actually 13, and it's the most important labor at the end. But anyway, the story of Hercules is essentially he goes around all 12 signs and does a labor in each 12 signs to become an immortal or to realize that he's an immortal. So his journey is the mortal to the immortal one, because obviously he's like a demigod. So he's born of Zeus, and so, but he's distinctly human. And so really Hercules is us, like same as like Orion. It's
Mhm.
like we are the divine, but we also feel the human. And so we are going to have to go through these 12 labors and arrive at the 13th. And so this is where the Hydra connected to you is the second labor in Hercules' story. And in the end, that's tied to the 13th. I won't tell you why, but the Hydra is so important. And it's this idea of turning that venom into medicine. And if you see in the Leo quadrinity psychology, the connection there, it says medicine
Yeah.
is one of the words. That's because
I
it's a
sort of interpreted the story. Can I share?
yeah, of course.
So basically, her poison does take his life, but he also becomes a god because her poison is the thing that actually makes the medicine actually makes him of God. So
That's it. Got
yeah,
it. And so it's the divine. So it's the divine feminine,
yes.
right? That actually like it wasn't done on purpose that she poisoned him, right? So it's a deep story to go into, but essentially it's the divine feminine that allows him to fully actually realize his immortality.
Mm,
Like that's the 13th. And so this is where, I mean, Hercules is that sort of, the embodiment of the masculine warrior, right? But the whole time he's actually being guided by the feminine. And in the Greek translation, his actual name is Heracles, after the goddess Hera.
oh wow,
I
okay.
noticed that in the spelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heracles.
So it's showing actually that subtly, although he's the man of strength and all the rest of it, subtly he's actually got that connection to the divine feminine that's guiding him, that's actually giving him these trials. So it kind of feels like the feminine's against him the whole time. And even in the end, he gets poisoned by the feminine. But what's his ultimate goal? It's to be immortal. And so without the trials of the feminine, without her making him go through these obstacles, without poisoning him in the end, sort of thing, like he wouldn't have reached that goal. And that's like, our lives, we sort of feel like, man, I'm getting hit by this all the time. And every step I go, I get, hit again. And it's like, yeah, but what's your aim for your life? Is your aim to be liberated or to be free or to be whatever? It's like, well, then they're the necessary steps. Like, and so, but again, it's such a beautiful story, Hercules. And you can read it forwards and backwards. And so I wrote it in a way that you can actually read it from the 13th down. That's how I wrote it. So you start at the end,
Oh,
or
wow.
you can actually read it from the human experience going up.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's, and when you read it in the two different ways, it's so different. So you've got like when I start, you start as the divine, seeing it through into the human form, and then you can read it the other way around, where you can actually read it from the first labor as a human trying to become the immortal. So it's a beautiful palindrome of reading, and it's that is us, right? We can see ourselves as divine or the human, or in the end we realize that we're both.
It's like your quadrinity. It's like
Mhm.
exactly what you've done in that thing.
Yeah, because we're so used to starting at the bottom,
Bottom. Yeah.
right? And so, but when you realize that really you, like, all masters were masters before they even started.
Mm.
It had to be in them to start with, right? So before you try anything, you are already a master of it, you just don't know it yet.
Mm.
Wow.
So isn't that a different in change? Rather than, oh, I'm just a beginner and I'm trying to get there. It's like, no, that master is in there. All you need to do is bring it out.
Yeah.
And over time, over training, you're just pulling it more and more out. You're letting it come out. And then one day you're going to be there and be like, wow, actually, it was there all along. I just needed a bit of shaping, alchemy. I just needed to open, and it's there. So every master started off as a beginner. It's like it was all there from the beginning.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think it's a massive it's perspective. Like it's really making so much, like it's shifting me internally, because I'm like, it just honestly changes the game just to look at the fact that you're looking at it like down now. Not that the other way's bad, but I think we've mastered that way. But I'm like just looking at it from this part and looking downwards. Like I said, so much of, victim mentality, not being enough, not do all that trauma, all those stories actually in themselves, the story on that path, it does not exist.
I'm
It's a
gonna
very different story.
I'm gonna use this for my fight coaching, because the first thing I sense is confidence, knowing that you are
Already
everything you
that.
need to be already. You are already complete, and you just need to find a way to take the layers off to reveal it.
That's
You
what I'm
know?
saying. People don't realize
Mm.
how much this stuff has changed my life.
Mm.
Because I used to come home and I would just share about the drawing and the music and learn this and even like just repeating patterns over and over again. And I started to say, listen, something's happening, because I'm starting to see things I'm not doing, and the doing stops. And that's what I realized too, that I stopped naturally craving, chocolate and sweets and stuff. And I started to want to do there was a shift happening without effort. And I would sit with meditation, I would sit with drawing for such longer periods, and the doing really started to stop. And the happening was happening on its own. And I was trying to explain this, guys, you just got to do this and it happens, like the happening, and it's incredible, because what people don't realize, it's applicable. It's actually applicable. This actually tangibly helps you. It's not woo-woo. It's no longer is this a separate part of living and life, right? It's very much exactly engagement. It's about being present. It's about not avoiding, people do a lot of work to avoid life, but everything that we've spoken about today, even though it's all about astrology, it's brought me back in to be more engaged with my life. And I'm so much more curious. And I'm like, what is my story? What am I going to create? And what, and I'm like this so much open to my life,
Yeah. No,
and
it's
it's beautiful. Like what a way to see your own life now.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like, it's so great because, and also, like, although you have certain astrology signs, like I say, when you realize that you are all the signs, that's why I say when you read the whole book, you may read like, Libra, and in your chart it says you have no Libra, but you read the story of Libra and you're like, oh my God, like that feels so resonant to me. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, because you're all the signs. And
Yeah.
so this is where we've just been looking at saying, like, in a box, like, I'm Leo or whatever, and we read about that. Well, yeah, but then you haven't seen the whole picture. It's kind of like, in medicine, like a holistic approach is to know that, the thoughts and emotions work, and that when you're working this part of the body, then the diagonal other part of the body is also compensating. And so it's like nothing ever works in
Alone.
isolation. And so this is where it's really beautiful. And that's why I say just go through the whole thing, and and also you'll pick up gems and understand others. And that's another part of this human dynamic, is that, as I say, you see in someone else, even if you don't know their sign, you know the story, and then they're playing it out, and you're like, okay. And then you can work with it. And so relationships become better. You become way more intimate, like in your other relationships, because you know their soul path, and you understand that story on that deeper level. But yeah, for me, if it wasn't, like, I love, it's great to be in that sort of fantasy realm, right? So the mythologies and things like that, and they're great. But for me, what I love about this is, because I know the astrology is actually linked to the DNA, and now seeing that the stories in the stars are actually woven into your DNA, like, that changes the game, because it means that the two are absolutely interwoven. And so really, if you want to change, like I was saying, about learning, I learned Latin for the book. I learned Hebrew in the book. It's like you look at these things, and I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm a fluent person,
Right,
but I know enough to, when I look at something, I'm like, oh, that says that. And so you start to expand, and like all of this happened because of, I just went into this openly and excited about it, and I wanted to see how the stars would affect the human journey. And that's why I say it will change your life without, in a way, without even having to practice. You're just taking it in and being with it, and then naturally you'll be prompted spontaneously to start doing something. It's not sort of thinking, I want to do this. It's more like you just become inspired, like you're saying about the coaching. Like, all of a sudden you feel inspired to listen to what the words you say or how you frame something. And now you're going to completely explode a whole new creative way for you to engage people and do stuff, like purely on listening to how the stories are conveyed and how it all links. And I would say, like, especially in competitive sport, my gosh, if I knew everybody's star sign, like in competitive sports, you could literally map out what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, what they need to do, where they need to go, their mindset, emotions, and understand them. Like, if I knew this when I was back coaching, we probably would have won even more games than than we did. But it taps into the real core of each person. As I say, like, knowing you're on with the Hydra, it's just so, it speaks volumes of the journey. Like when I said to you about changing poison into potion, and you were like, yes, it's like, that speaks on such a deep level, and like I said, formal hold, like now, if you look into like the Persian mysteries of the star, like, what was that about, and what does the fish represent, and formal hold is the fish that drinks in the wisdom being poured by Aquarius.
Okay.
Right. So it's the fish that drinks in, soaks it all in. Right. So we can pour all the wisdom we want onto people. If they don't drink, it's just wasted. So
that's
your natural thing is to literally, like, you're drinking in those diamonds of wisdom. So when you're taught, you're like, give me more. I'm soaking it all in. It's coming in. And so that fish, is the representation of wisdom. And that's why it's like the Christ image, of the fish, the piscus, the Vesica Piscis.
And another question, when you're born and you also have kids and you've got your family, is that also something that obviously has effects? So what your kids are, the star signs. Like, I really always had this relationship with my eldest one where we're very alike and very it's almost like there's a magnetism, and she's Orion, she's Taurus the 5th, right? So she's 5th of May 2000 and Golden Dragon, right? And me and her just have this automatic, like, we were like, I call her my mum and I'm her daughter. It's almost like, the roles are reversed, but we've always had this. And then more I started to read and learn and everything, and then Sirius and Orion, and I was like, oh my God. And then, the Sphinx is Leo, and then Bull Mountain. And I was listening to all that. I was like, God, there's something here, there's something here. So do we also come families? Do we also come like little constellations within our own little families, and we sort of live out our stories that way as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say in astrology, they're all done on pairs. So, like I said, like Scorpio and Taurus are a pair, right? So the opposites, like Aquarius and Leo are a pair. So this is how you can start to think about it. So whatever your sun sign is, so say like the Aquarius, right, is your sun sign, right? So your earth sign, your earth, what I call your earth day, is Leo. So your physical human form is actually more Leo than it is Aquarius. So your soul energy is like Aquarius, right? And then your body is actually more linked to Leo, which makes sense, right? It's like the fighting and the yeah. So this is where you can start to see that, like, although I'm an Aquarius, actually what's really connected to my body naturally is that Leo energy. So, and it's the same the opposite way around for you, right? So you're a Leo, right? So then your embodiment or your body is more Aquarian. So you two are like direct opposites, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why it kind of works, right? Because
It works. Yeah.
And so the same thing with family constellations, and of course you have things like crosses in astrology. So you have what they call like the fixed cross, which is the 4 royal signs, royal stars. And so you have the Aquarius and the Leo, and then you have Scorpio and Taurus. So it's a quadrinity.
I've got 3. I don't have the Scorpio. Remember I was saying my son's a Capricorn. So we've got Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius.
Yeah. So, but when you sort of go into astrology, you'll see that there are certain patterns, like crosses and also the opposites. And then that's when you start to see the group dynamics. And of course, in astrology, they're all broken down, whether they're earth, air, fire, and water. Right. So that, like the Capricorn, for example, is like cardinal earth. It's a cardinal is like it's going, like we're going this way. Like cardinal earth is like, right, we're off. Like boom, let's get going. Like why are we hanging around? Like and even when they walk, like they're like, oh, they're off. They're like walk, like there's no leisurely like chilling. So you can know all of this through astrology. Like, isn't it quite crazy that you can literally map out somebody's traits, their life, like where they're going and what their sort of attitudes are, like just based on that initial imprinting. And then obviously as we expand and grow into the other signs, then that's when we start to really evolve, and we start to co-create that destiny, rather than sort of it being fated. And that's what I think's beautiful. It's, as I say, it's the starting block. But yeah, when you know the constellations of your family, like how you are designed, then you know that person's going to need more rest, or that person's going to nap during the day, or that person, like you say the wrong thing and they're going to go from naught to tasty in like a second. Like, because there's a certain initial, like somebody who's fixed fire. So Leo is fixed fire, right?
Yeah.
So it's always on. I mean, imagine like the Olympic flame, right? Yeah, it's always burning, right? So even when it's resting, it's burning. So just knowing that, like, you can navigate around things, and it also helps with understanding the body. If there's too much heat in the body, becoming too dehydrated too quickly, and things like this, like all of this is maps. You can link it all to body parts, to the all to the medical and to holistic herbs, and it's like it's just libraries of it's just so fascinating.
And I think that's the biggest key takeaway, is that people used to see this as a life sentence, and they're like, oh, now I have to like sort of be stuck with this, and if I don't like what I sort of get told, or then poor me. But when you look at it exactly, you can fine tune and tweak everything to serve you. You can, a bit more water here, less fire there. You can, work out relationships. You understand everything. And I think that's the whole thing, is about empowerment taken back, understanding this, you know, humanness and how incredible we are. I mean, you told me in the messages, you know, we are the Stargate. It's you know, the pyramids are there to show us that it's within us, you know, and it was like really landed. I was like, yeah. And we have never been told or taught that we are that incredible, you know. It's like you said, the Hercules stories, the divinity and the humanness. And I was like, incredible. And you know, in the Indian culture, we have Ram, who was sort of like a depiction of that as well, right? So he, as a man, was divine on earth, you know, like he showed what it was to be divine on earth, being in human form. So when I started to really go back into my culture and also start to like decode those and said, oh my gosh, yes, this is the same thing Rob was saying over here, and this story shows me this. And the Mahabharata, they're all the different like traits of a human being. They're not separate people. They're like, you know, all the different aspects of a human and what we have to sort of go through. And it was incredible because you start to uncover a lot, and you understand that how much power and how much is within us. Because that's the other thing about what I sort of got from you as well, that separation between, you know, the divine and God being separate from us. It's not. And I think that's a beautiful thing, how we can now, it really brought it back to, no, it's here, it's now, it's within you, you have access to it all times. You know, these are the different, these are the different expressions, these are the stories, but it's in all of us. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because I think in the cultures before, there was a separation. We were sort of kept a little bit separate to not feel like we are divine. But I think now with this age and with the information and people like you sharing that, no, divinity is within us, we are that. I think, you know, this is beautiful, because people are now starting to see, no, it's not just a Jesus person that does Jesus things, you know, it's the consciousness, and we all have the capacity.
Yeah, no, absolutely beautiful. And that's why I say, like, one of the biggest breakthroughs I had, you know, because I started sort of through that chakra system sort of ideal, right? So, you know, sort of talk going through the chakras, and then you go higher and higher, and sort of the soul sort of stars above your head and this sort of stuff. And, you know, the biggest breakthrough I had, I would say that really nailed this for me, which is other people can do this as well, is ask the question, how far away is your soul from you? Right? Like where is it? Like, how is it above your head? Do you feel like it's there? Like, is it in your heart? Like, where, like, how far away are you from? Because, you know, to say like divinity or Christ consciousness, this sort of stuff like this can feel so huge, like a big leap, you know? So just start with yourself, like your soul or your higher self, whatever you want to call it. So how far away is the higher self from you? Like, what's the distance? Like, where do you have to go? Like, do you have to go into meditation? Do you have to go into your crown chakra? Or is it here? Like, and then you start to realize, like, and the answer that came, and it just made me laugh for about half an hour straight when the epiphany happened, you know, and it sounds so simple. It's just like, how can there be any distance? Like, what is inside and outside? That there is no, like, I can't get away from my soul, right? Like, no matter how far I travel on a plane, like, I can't leave it behind. Like, so it has to be here.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's quite practical. It's like, well, where else can it be? You know, I can't speak without it. It has to be here. Yeah. And so then you start to realize, like, oh my God, like this sense of divine. It's like, well, if you realize, if you can take that the soul is part of that divine matrix, that consciousnness, well, then it's right here. You've got your soul is the access point into that, you know, so you're that sort of what's that, like mobile dongle, right? You know, like when you get like a internet and like you can take it wherever you want. Yeah. It's like you're the like mobile device that it's got a direct, you know, speed line straight into the source. So where else is there to go other than just being here and just accessing the fullness and just keep uncovering, you know, saying, like, you know, move the clouds and let them just pass, and then you start to see the light and how the energy and the consciousness comes through. And that's really this whole book, I explained in the book that there was this beautiful thing called the way of transparency. And that's the way in which you move through the book. So as you read it, it's about saying, just become transparent. And it's not a thing you can do. You can't become transparent. It's just about being. And just even you think about like what it would be like to be transparent, where everything runs through you, around you. There's no obstacles. There's nowhere you can't be because you're transparent. You're everywhere. Like there's no blocks. There's nothing that gets in your way. You can be everywhere. You can be nowhere. There's no color to you. There's nothing. You're just transparent, right? And so it's such a relief. It's like, I'm not having to go on this journey. Don't have to do this alchemy. And what it does is it just allows you to be and just allow the consciousness to express through you and with you. And then that's really where all of this transmission came from and all of this stuff. And that's why being able to understand like the quantum field or the human DNA or Latin or something like this, it's like, well, how do you do that? Well, just be transparent. It's like a way of being. And now it's great because things just flow through and you just feel it in that moment. And you're just like, I kind of got this urge to look at this. You don't know why. And you're just sort of living in that moment, and you're aware of everything. And so it's sort of like a non-doing. It's just like being like a receptive vessel. And honestly, everything comes, like the answers that you want, like if you're having like a challenging time, or instead of like trying to think your way out of it, or what should I do and how, just become transparent. And you don't have to sit still either. Like transparency doesn't mean it's sitting still. Like you can move, do your house tasks, do whatever you need to do. Just become transparent. It's such a beautiful way of being. It's neither nothingness or everythingness. It's not a thing. It's just this, you basically become ether, you become the field, and that's how it all flows in. And all the creativity, everything that's around you, it speaks to you. And it's a really simple, and once you get into that way of doing things, it's just a joy. It's a real joy to do it.
Beautiful.
Oh,
I love that.
That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. And everything that you said, like I said, everybody can apply this to their life. Everything you said, it's literally like carry water, chop wood. Honestly, we came back to that, and it's like just be simple, and allow, just no doing, be here. But yeah, you can't find your soul. You are that. You're here all the time. Beautiful. And thank you so much, Rob. Like I know I have been eating your mind for the last.
That's great.
And I'm not done. Believe me, I'm not done, because I'm like, and you have been incredible, because it's just, I really appreciate you, because you have given it even off from our podcast. You've always given me the time, answering 50 questions, and just being so present and so humble. And it's beautiful. So thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you. And, I actually was calling out for some sort of guidance, and you pop along, and I am not disappointed. Like, you've blown me away, and, keep going, Rob. And I hope everybody gets to know about you, and we can get the word across, and the book. I'm excited to get the book and stuff. And, I'm so glad my kids are a part of this too. It's something that I'm doing as a family, and I'm so grateful, and I'm sharing it with everybody that I know. So, all support and all love and blessings from definitely our side. And we'll keep doing these, please, Rob.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And the thing is, it's all well and good to provide this, the book and everything else, but it's about people need to take this on board and work with this for it to come alive. It's all there. It's like, it's all presented there, but without the enthusiasm that you're showing, and that the fact that you want to go into this, and, it's this beautiful sort of want to dive into these sort of subjects and know that this can be tangible and can really work with your life. Like, it takes people like you to share the message. And I've loved it. I love that enthusiasm, when it's like, let's go, let's go into this and dive really deep, because you'll be so surprised that you can present literally life-changing things, and
No
there's
one-
like no enthusiasm, or it's like, well, you know, living a life thinking like, oh, how do I change? It's like, it's right there. Like, I will walk with you. I will even come and walk with you through this, you know, and that's why I'm doing, you know, preparing an online platform to do some courses and stuff to help people like walk through it together. You know, it's all about this, about us moving together through it. It's a collective movement. And, but as I say, without you guys sharing this, you know, it doesn't fall on the right ears. So, yeah, I've loved it. I've loved all of your deep dive questions and our chat today. And as I say, yeah, for definitely when it comes to family and friends and like, and understanding work colleagues and everything that you do in your life, you know, going into this, it's not just sort of an esoteric idea. Like this really does change us. And we know the planets have a huge effect on the earth, you know, and the stars. It's written within our bodies, you know, and so if we just start to learn this a bit more, like we can really make a huge change. So yeah, I really appreciate you both, and yeah, I've loved it. So more than happy to come back and chat some more.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank
All the
you.
best, mate. Thanks for today.
So good.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We hope that you enjoyed it.
Don't forget, guys, to please subscribe. Check out our website to stay up to date with events, merch, and just to get in touch with us.
Also, follow us on Instagram. We post a lot of good shit and funny shit.
You'll find that at the B.Human Movement. Until next time, guys, please remember to be human.